In the heart of the Soviet Union, a monster lurked among the innocent. For over a decade, he evaded capture, leaving behind a trail of terror and tragedy. Families lived in fear, knowing that someone was taking their loved ones without a trace. This monster was not just a figment of imagination, he was real and dangerous. He prowled the streets, blending in with everyday life while hiding a dark secret. His name was Andrei Chikatilo. He became one of history's most notorious serial killers, striking fear into the hearts of many. His crimes were brutal and shocking, marked by an insatiable hunger for violence. As the police struggled to connect the dots, Chikatilo continued his spree, taking the lives of countless victims. In this video, we will explore the chilling story of Andrei Chikatilo, the man behind the mask of normalcy. How did he become this monster, and what drove him to commit such horrific acts? Join us as we uncover the dark truth about a life steeped in evil and the lasting impact of his crimes. Andrei Chikatilo was born in 1936 in a small village in Ukraine. His early life was filled with hardship. He grew up in a poor family, and the struggles of poverty were a constant presence. Food was scarce, and hunger often haunted his childhood. These difficult conditions left a deep mark on him, shaping his personality in ways that would later become evident. As a child, Chikatilo faced bullying from his peers. He was shy and often struggled to fit in. This isolation created a sense of loneliness that followed him into adulthood. His home life was also unstable as parents often fought, adding to the chaos he experienced. These early experiences created a troubled individual. Chikatilo's inability to form healthy relationships and cope with his emotions made him vulnerable to darker urges. As he grew older, these urges would evolve into something far more sinister. The seeds of violence and obsession were planted during his formative years, leading him down a path that would end in tragedy for many innocent lives. As Andrei Chikatilo entered adulthood, he faced many challenges. His struggles with relationships only deepened. He found it hard to connect with people, and this isolation left him feeling even more alone. Chikatilo's self-image was low, and he often felt inadequate. This inability to form meaningful connections with others contributed to his growing frustration and anger. In the 1970s, the first signs of Chikatilo's violent tendencies began to emerge. He experienced several failed relationships, which only fueled his sense of rejection and rage. During this time, he also had incidents of aggression, where his temper would flare without warning. These outbursts hinted at the darkness that was brewing within him. As he struggled with his emotions, it became clear that something was deeply wrong. Chikatilo's inner turmoil was escalating, setting the stage for the horrific actions he would later commit. His inability to cope with these feelings would lead him down a dark and dangerous path. In 1978, Andrei Chikatilo moved to Rostov-on-Don. This city would soon become the backdrop for his heinous crimes. As he settled into his new environment, his murderous impulses began to take shape. Rostov, with its bustling streets and dark alleys, provided the perfect hunting ground for a man like Chikatilo. He blended into the crowd, hiding his true nature behind a mask of normalcy. Later that same year, Chikatilo committed his first murder. A young girl disappeared, and her sudden absence sent shockwaves through the community. Days later, her body was discovered, and it revealed the horrific violence inflicted upon her. This brutal act marked the beginning of a chilling spree. Chikatilo had crossed a line, and he felt an unsettling sense of power from his actions. With this first murder, a monster was unleashed. Little did the people of Rostov know that a wave of terror was about to sweep through their city, one that would leave lasting scars on many lives. As the months passed, a chilling pattern began to emerge in Chikatilo's crimes. He developed a method that was disturbingly consistent. Chikatilo specifically targeted young women and children, often luring them in with false promises. He would approach them in parks or on the streets, pretending to be friendly and harmless. Once he gained their trust, he unleashed his sadistic violence. The victims had no idea what was about to happen. Chikatilo's ability to manipulate and deceive made him a terrifying predator. Each murder followed a similar sequence, allowing him to evade capture for years. The police struggled to connect the dots as the body count rose. Families were left shattered and terrified, while Chikatilo continued his rampage, blending into society as if he were just another face in the crowd. As the years went by, Chikatilo's killings became increasingly brutal. What began as a horrifying act soon turned into a twisted ritual. He took pleasure in the suffering of his victims, finding satisfaction in their fear and pain. Each murder left behind a gruesome signature that marked his depravity. Chikatilo would often engage in acts of extreme violence, showing no mercy to those he targeted. The brutality of his crimes escalated to new heights, shocking the local community and law enforcement. The bodies of his victims were discovered in horrific conditions, revealing the true extent of his sadism. With each murder, he grew more confident, believing he could outsmart the authorities. The fear he instilled in the region only fueled his desire for more violence. Chikatilo was no longer just a killer, he was a monster who reveled in chaos and horror, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. As bodies began to pile up, law enforcement faced a daunting challenge. The investigation struggled to connect the dots, with each new murder complicating their efforts. They encountered numerous obstacles, including a lack of resources and the complexities of the Soviet system. The police were often overwhelmed, and many leads went nowhere. The sheer number of victims made it difficult to establish a clear pattern. Local authorities found themselves racing against time, but the killer remained elusive. Despite their efforts, fear gripped the community as the murders continued. Experts tried to understand Chikatilo's psyche, delving into the mind of this brutal killer. His sadistic behavior raised unsettling questions about the nature of evil. What drove him to commit such horrific acts? The complexities of his personality made it challenging for psychologists to create a clear profile. They explored factors that may have influenced his actions, including his troubled childhood and troubled adult life. Yet, understanding his motivations proved difficult. Chikatilo was not just a murderer, he represented a darker side of humanity that many struggled to comprehend. The investigation revealed not only the horror of his crimes, but also the complexities of the human mind. In 1990, after years of terror, Andrei Chikatilo was finally apprehended. A chance encounter with police changed everything. Officers stopped him for questioning, and their instincts led them to dig deeper. During this encounter, they noticed things that didn't add up. His nervous behavior and conflicting statements raised their suspicions. After some investigation, he was arrested. However, it was a close call. By this time, Chikatilo had already claimed the lives of over 50 victims, leaving a trail of grief and horror behind him. The city breathed a sigh of relief, but the nightmare was far from over. During interrogation, Chikatilo confessed to his horrific crimes in shocking detail. His chilling words painted a gruesome picture of his actions. He spoke about the pleasure he derived from his violence, revealing the depth of his depravity. Chikatilo's trial in 1992 captivated the nation. The courtroom transformed into a theater of horror as families of his victims confronted the man who had caused them so much pain. It was an emotional and heartbreaking scene. Mothers and fathers shared their grief, their voices shaking with sorrow as they looked at the man responsible for their loved ones' deaths. Chikatilo sat in silence, showing little emotion as the testimonies unfolded. Every detail of his crimes was revealed, shocking those in attendance and the millions watching from home. The trial dragged on, exposing the full extent of his brutality and leaving the nation grappling with the reality of what had happened. The public was horrified by the revelations of Chikatilo's crimes. Fear swept through the communities where he had preyed on the innocent. People began to look at strangers with suspicion, unsure of who might be hiding dark intentions. The outrage was palpable. Many demanded justice, calling for stricter laws to protect citizens from such heinous acts. This trial was not just about one man, it was about the loss of safety and innocence in society. As the trial progressed, the nation united in its grief and anger, hoping for closure in the face of unimaginable tragedy. In 1994, Chikatilo was sentenced to death. The verdict brought some closure to the families of his victims, but the scars of his actions would last forever. Many felt a sense of relief, knowing that he would pay for the pain he caused. Families gathered in the courtroom, some crying tears of sorrow and others of anger. They hoped that this punishment would honor their loved ones and serve as a warning to others. Chikatilo's crimes left a dark legacy in Russia and beyond. His name became synonymous with serial murder, forever marking him as a symbol of evil. People remember the fear he instilled in communities and the countless lives he shattered. His story is a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity. Even years later, his horrific actions continue to spark discussions about mental health, violence, and the importance of public safety. Chikatilo's legacy is one of tragedy, a haunting echo of the lives lost and the families forever affected by his crimes. The Chikatilo case prompted changes in law enforcement practices and a renewed focus on the importance of victim protection and mental health awareness. law enforcement agencies began to recognize the need for better communication and cooperation when dealing with serial crimes. Training programs were introduced to help officers identify warning signs and patterns of behavior that could lead to prevention. Additionally, the case highlighted the importance of supporting victims and their families. Many advocates pushed for stronger laws and resources to help those affected by violent crime. Society became more aware of mental health issues, understanding that many violent offenders suffer from untreated conditions. This awareness led to discussions about improving mental health services and providing better support for at-risk individuals. Chikatilo's story has been explored in numerous books, films, and documentaries, further solidifying his place in the annals of criminal history. These portrayals often focus on the gruesome nature of his crimes, sparking curiosity and horror in audiences. Some works aim to understand the psychological factors behind his behavior, while others delve into the failures of law enforcement during his killing spree. Through these media depictions, Chikatilo's actions have become a cautionary tale. They remind society of the need for vigilance and the importance of addressing the underlying issues that can lead to such violence. His story continues to fascinate and horrify, ensuring that the lessons learned from his crimes will not be forgotten. In the wake of Chikatilo's horror, society must learn from the past to prevent similar tragedies. Understanding the warning signs of violent behavior is crucial for both law enforcement and the community. Education and awareness programs can help people recognize troubling patterns and take action when necessary. Andrei Chikatilo's story is a haunting reminder of the darkness that can exist within humanity. As we reflect on his chilling legacy, we must remain vigilant against the monsters that may be lurking in our midst. Awareness, education, and proactive measures are essential in fighting the shadows of violence. By learning from the past, we can work toward a safer future for everyone. And with that said, thanks for watching True Stories. If this tale of mystery and superstition caught your interest, hit that subscribe button to join us for more fascinating stories from history's strangest corners. Until next time, stay curious.